The National Center for Disease Control has reported 30 cases of COVID-19 as at 11:20 p.m. 15th April 2020. Of the number, 18 in Lagos, 12 in Kano, 2 in Katsina, 1 in Delta, and 1 in Niger State. With this update, Nigeria now has 407 confirmed cases of COVID-19. 128 have been discharged, with 12 deaths. President Muhammadu Buhari has made a case for aggressive detection and contact tracing towards flattening the curve, as well as breaking community transmission, as efforts are intensified to control and contain the coronavirus pandemic in the country. This was while teleconferencing with members of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 in furtherance to its strategic engagement for appropriate response to the uncommon health challenge confronting mankind. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
Very good morning. This is the first formal interaction between President Muhammadu Buhari and the entire members of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, established, amongst others, coordinate multi-sectoral and intergovernmental approach towards containing the global pandemic. The interface provided the opportunity for the 13-member task force to individually give comprehensive situation reports, thoughts, ideas, and indeed challenges in the battle to contain COVID-19 in Nigeria.
Mr. President was able to hear from them firsthand, not a report through the leadership as embodied in my person. He did ask some questions, he did make some contributions on basic issues and gave certain directives that we are working on ensuring that those directives are complied with. And he took our time to thank them personally for their commitment, for their patriotism, and for their dedication to this cause. And the assurances that we got from Mr. President, I believe, would go a long way in helping the members of the committee become more determined and more resolute in the pursuit of this thing.
Maybe some of the new presidential directives to the task force.
More aggressive tracing and isolation of those affected or those that have shown symptoms, testing to break the chain of any community transmission. I can assure you that there won't be transmission. There will definitely be transmission, but if we're able to get ahead of the transmission, then we can deal with it decisively.
Worried over how the nation's economy will operate in the prevailing situation, President Muhammadu Buhari directed a task force to work with critical stakeholders towards ensuring that the adverse effect of COVID-19 on farming in particular is minimized to the barest minimum.
Our people need to go back to their farms so that we are able to raise sufficient food for the people of the country. I mean, the strength of a nation is in its ability to feed itself. Once we are able to deal with issues of of food and the rest of it, these other problems, we would overcome them.
During the engagement, both the President and members of the task force harped on the need for more cooperation, patience and understanding by Nigerians as efforts are intensified towards bringing to an end this unprecedented calamity.
The measures that have been taken are not punitive anyway. These measures that are meant to secure lives and the wealth of our people. Like Mr. President said, it is not it is a very serious issue. But there's no time to play games. We're dealing with an unseen enemy that is vicious, that spreads fast, and that does not respect of any protocol. So our people will need to understand that everything Mr. President has put in place is for the good of our people and of our nation. And collectively, I believe, if we cooperate with the government and the processes and the protocols that have been put in place, I can assure you that we will be able to break the transmission and flatten the curve.
The chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Boss Mustafa, said although adequate preparations have been made for the worst-case scenario, at the instance of President Muhammadu Buhari, looking at situations in other parts of the world, it is the President's prayer that such facilities are never put to use for the coronavirus pandemic. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NN News.
With the increase in cases of COVID-19 with Nigeria, a cross-section of prominent citizens in Jos have commended the Plateau State government for taking measures at preventing the spread of the disease in the state. Ekemeren Kaneng-Ladoja reports.
Some of the measures taken by the Plateau State government to stay and work from home are for civil servants from grade level 1 to 12, the shutdown of primary to tertiary educational institutions, closing of exits and entry points into the state, the lockdown of the state for 7 days, and final contamination of the state. These informed minds say this by the Plateau State government are commendable, as the government has put the people first.
Action has been taken, even the fumigation itself, was one that was done in a very magnificent way.
To a large extent, we can give him the credit that he's trying his best on that kind of a level.
When it comes to media, when it comes to the lives of people, you can't really have a guessing situation.
I could say that the government has tried and it is trying to do the bit it can within its limited resources to see if it can actually curb the spread of the pandemic.
The lockdown was necessary as this minimized the movement of people into Plateau State, especially during the Easter celebration, they explained, but held that certain strategies should have been put in place first. What lessons can be learned from the COVID-19 pandemic as well as the lockdown?
In any case, be it headache, whatever, for whatever reason you need to access hospital within these 7 days, it should have been for free.
Humanity always wins. Once we are coordinated and united, once we forget where we come from, once we forget our religious lines, our political lines, our regional lines, we overcome anything at all.
For this group of Nigerians, they are of the view that as little drops of water makes the mighty ocean, so little acts of kindness by Nigerians towards each other will make this period bearable, as well as adhering to government's directives and that of medical practitioners, which will be the best way to beat COVID-19. In Jos, Ekemeren Kaneng-Ladoja, NTA News.
Governor Simon Lalong has relaxed the total lockdown in the state by 4 days, beginning 11 p.m. Wednesday, 15th April 2020 to 12 midnight of Sunday, 19th April 2020. The break of 4 days is to allow people to restock their homes.
All illegal street trading, street hawking, and begging are prohibited. The illegal Sunday markets on Ahmadu Bello Way, Ukur and environs remain banned. Social joys, nightclubs, drinking parlors are to remain closed, while restaurants are advised to prepare takeaways for their customers to avoid overcrowding. Motor parks are to capture and track, including contacts of all inbound and outbound passengers, as well as adhere strictly to social distancing and mass gathering prohibition order, as well as hygiene regulations. Those taken up are to abide by the restrictions on the number of passengers to carry, which have been spelled out 1, 4, and 6 respectively. Places of worship are to strictly adhere to the 50 persons while maintaining social distancing and hygiene regulations.
The total lockdown resumes on Monday night to Thursday, 23rd April 2020. The governor says the restriction on of all markets remain, except those food items, pharmaceuticals, and cooking gas. Still on the lockdown in Plateau, we have in the studio the State Commissioner of Information, Dan Manjang, on the assessment phase of the lockdown and what can phase possibly look like. You are welcome to the studio.
It's my pleasure. Good afternoon.
Could you just tell us, I'm sure you've had listeners trying to see that the whole exercise went well. So tell us, how did it go?
Yes, well, as a matter of fact, all we can do, I can say, is to God be the glory. I have seen it times we are normal. And I repeat that people first irrespective of affiliation, irrespective of religion and tribe, are speaking one voice. They are speaking one voice. They are supporting the government of
We apologize. That is the much we can take. Jos, thank you so much for joining us in Abuja. I'm Elizabeth Omori. The Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, has warned that tough consequences awaits members of the organized transport sector who continue to breach the existing restriction order by resorting to night travels, a development that has proven to be counterproductive as it undermines the efforts of the federal government in curbing the spread of the deadly COVID-19. Consequently, the IGP has directed commissioners of police to ensure full implementation of the restriction order, especially as it relates to night travels, without being unmindful of categories of exempted persons and the fundamental human rights of Nigerians. Another fortnight behind shut gates to wage an holistic war against COVID-19. Uncomfortable as it seems, the level of compliance is considerably okay at the city centre of Abuja. Mayor Ogede's concern today is beyond the city centre, but the satellite areas of the Federal Capital Territory.
The Federal Capital Territory, Nigeria's second coronavirus hotspot, and the government is denying the virus fertile ground it needs to spread fast. The locking down of the 6 area councils in order to avoid citizens being knocked down by the virus on the street. Sirens loud enough and the empty streets give an even more telling signal of these unusual times. The clarion call is stay at home to remain safe. Lockdown in its true definition here in Buhari area of the FCT, major streets barricaded, not for a construction work, but as a barrier against the virus in killing mood. In Dusi, Gwagwalada, Kwali and Kuje, it is a different world in these locales. Obviously, the stay-at-home order does not exist, an oblivion of the oblivious. Traffic at its peak, many waiting for a drop to their destinations, while markets operating at optimal. Hopefully, what is being exchanged is just goods. In Zuba, youths in their numbers along major roads making appeals for assistance as the lockdown bites harder. For the government, the choices and sacrifices we make today will determine the duration of stay of the virus. For us, its quick eviction is of utmost importance. Mayor Ogede, NT News.
As part of efforts to strengthen enforcement of the containment of coronavirus pandemic in Ondo State, the state government has imposed a curfew from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. indefinitely to resist community transmission. The state governor also directed that any offender of interstate point of entry order, among other measures, be prosecuted. Olajide Bello, who monitored level of compliance in the state capital, reports that members of the public have been reacting to the government's decision to curtailing the spread of the virus.
Announcing imposition of the curfew, Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, who described the new case as tragic and unfortunate, having been linked to a medical practitioner who in the line of duty contracted the virus from the index case, said the curfew is intended to manage community transmission of the disease in the state.
It is clear from this particular case that unlike the previous two, which were conveyed from outside the state, the current case is within a state. This has a tendency towards community transmission.
The governor frowned at what he called carefree attitude of some people by disregarding various preventive measures put in place by government in curtailing the spread of the virus, saying government will take some decisive measures to enforce compliance.
Arrest and detention of individuals found to have breached government directives on restriction of movement of persons and goods.
In the meantime, mixed reactions trail the imposition of the curfew, as some described the development as a constraint to their means of livelihood, while others viewed it as a welcome development.
I'm not Kadama, understand? You see, affect me. Before, I used to gather like 3,000 before. For now, it's very difficult to me. I said, I just win my living for a day. Then when I start by 7 a.m., I close by 6 p.m. So you understand? So it's not affecting me.
Patrol of the various boundaries of the state with neighboring states have been strengthened as adequate records of those entering the state have been taken to facilitate easy tracing while vehicular movements are restricted. However, stakeholders have called on governments to heighten its enforcement at the state entry points to check illegal movement. This morning, some commercial vehicles from Ibadan entered Akure, loaded and went back. Government should pay more attention to the borders. Shops and markets, especially in Akure and other major towns, remain closed to business in line with government directive. However, makeshift markets have sprung up within the metropolis to serve as alternatives. From Akure, Olajide Bello, NTA News.
You're watching Panorama on NTA. Let's take a break now. More to come when we return. Thanks for joining us. We had to cut off from our studio in just due to a technical hitch, but now the studio is ready, so let's join the conversation between Caleb and the Commissioner of Information, Plateau State.
The trauma hospital, brand new in Riom, has been earmarked as a treatment center, and Miss Palace, for people that know just, has donated his facility and Godia Resort in Barkin Ladi, so that we are looking at about 300 to 350.
The Plateau State is ready.
So we are ready in an event that there's an outbreak.
Okay, issue of palliatives. The federal government has done that, and anything on ground for the people.
Yes, it's a huge issue. I wish you didn't bring it. It's a huge issue. What we have said is that it is practically impossible for government to feed people, but for palliatives, the measure that His Excellency, the Governor of Plateau State, has taken to show the world that it is that serious is that he has constituted a committee to look at that issue, and the committee is headed by the Deputy Governor, His Excellency Professor Sonny Gwanle Tioden. And so we are working on that, but it has to, the Governor in his speech spelled out clearly people that are supposed to get these palliatives. And it will interest people to know that everybody has now resorted to being indigent. Everybody is talking about palliatives. Yes. And that was why His Excellency, the Governor, stated clearly people that will benefit. And let me say, Plateau people, during the first phase of the lockdown, we are happy that Plateau people demonstrated the love for one another. They took care of one another because at that time, nothing had been released. And they survived. How did they survive? They must have survived because they were able to take care of one another. But as I'm talking to you, palliatives, companies have assisted, NASCO has assisted, Grand Series has assisted, individuals have assisted, monies have been given by individuals and banks, UBA particularly 28.5 million naira. And so all that money is going to be put into the hands of the committee led by the Deputy Governor, and very soon we'll be able to give palliatives to people. And this is in addition to the social investment program of the federal government, of people that get money. About above 61,000 people have collected assistance, one form of assistance or the other.
Okay, so we're getting into the second phase of the lockdown now. What do we expect? Because we're talking of palliatives, and then second phase again is coming in.
As a matter of fact, the second phase has come. What we expect is that we will leverage on the issues that we have not been able to do. We want to consolidate. Our greatest problem is the border points. We going to man them with CCTV cameras so that we embark on surveillance. Because in the course of the first phase of the lockdown, we discovered that people still found their way into Plateau State, either crossing to other states or finding their way into Plateau State. What people should understand is that this government has a human face, and the lockdown for the second phase is going to be only 4 days. People are even asking, after the 4 days, what next?
That's right.
After the 4 days, we'll not know what to do. But I can assure Plateau people that even then, we have relaxed so many measures. We discovered that we needed to allow people to drink water, to buy water. Bread sellers, we had to allow them. Farmers in the villages are not going to be part of the second phase.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Information, for coming this afternoon. And we appreciate you. We pray that the Lord will see us through these difficulties. We return to Abuja for the continuation of our programs. Thank you for staying with us in Jos.
Thank you so much, Caleb. Now let's talk sports. Sports administrators see brighter days after COVID-19. Kene Imabudike brings us details of this and more on Sports Updates.